This week on Under the Radar, it's all about justice, more specifically, restoring justice to college campuses in the United States. But before we get to that, a different type of justice. Justice of the sweet kind. Evergreen State College faces $2.1 million budget shortfall, cites enrollment drop, issues layoff notices. Now, if you don't know the story behind Evergreen State University, please check out some of my previous videos on the topic. But basically, Evergreen College is the perfect example of what happens when a school becomes completely captured by social justice fanatics. And thankfully, when that reality seeps out into the public sphere, people start forming opinions and making decisions about whether they should send their kids to such an institution. Administrators at the Evergreen State College have announced that the embattled school faces a massive $2.1 million budget shortfall, due in part to a drop in enrollment, and the institution has already handed out some temporary layoff notices as officials grapple with balancing the books. So enrollment for 2017-18 is down about 5%, or about 200 students. But the problem is nearly all of the students they lost are non-residents who traditionally pay a much higher tuition to attend. So the 5% they lost are the most lucrative students. Combined with a shortfall in funding from state coffers to shoulder a mandatory cost of living salary increase and a rise in the general cost of operations, and the school must find a way to resolve a $2.1 million shortfall for the fiscal year that began July 1st. This creates the need for significant budget cuts in the immediate future, adding that the university late last month already handed out temporary layoff notices to 17 facility staff members. So that's the downside here. The wacko social justice faculty members aren't the people being laid off. Some notices were rescinded as we try to use scarce local dollars to keep people employed. However, if the capital budget crisis at the state level continues indefinitely, layoffs will become impossible to avoid. In a college where 89% of the operating budget is in salaries and benefits, it is impossible to reduce the budget by substantial amounts without giving up positions. In anticipation of this, we will soon be announcing a hiring freeze. Well, maybe that's one upside. They won't be able to hire any additional diversity and inclusion officers. But this comes at a bad time. Just over a month ago, Professor Brett Weinstein filed a $3.8 million claim against Evergreen College on behalf of both himself and his wife, Heather Haying, also a professor at Evergreen. So we've seen this movie before, and it has a name, the Mizzou Effect, when a Black Lives Matter protest in 2014 at the University of Missouri helped destroy the reputation of that institution. Back in May, it was reported Mizzou would close 7 dorms and had eliminated 400 positions. But don't worry, neither Evergreen's own experience or the lessons from Mizzou are going to keep them from their important work, because we learn. In a somewhat tone-deaf part of the August 28 memo from Evergreen, administrators state that we must continue our efforts to make Evergreen a student-ready college. Our work in equity and inclusion is an important step in this process. That's it, Georgie boy. Double down. Anyway, on to the main story. Betsy DeVos gave a half-hour speech at George Mason University indicating that the Department of Education would seek to roll back the kangaroo court system on US college campuses for dealing with cases of sexual misconduct. Here are some of the highlights.
The truth is that the system established by the prior administration has failed too many students. Survivors, victims of a lack of due process, and campus administrators have all told me that the current approach does a disservice to everyone involved. That's why we must do better, because the current approach isn't working. The era of rule by letter is over. Through intimidation and coercion, the failed system has clearly pushed schools to overreach. With the heavy hand of Washington tipping the balance of her scale, the sad reality is that Lady Justice is not blind on campuses today. This unraveling of justice is shameful. It's wholly un-American, and it is anathema to the system of self-governance to which our founders pledged their lives over 240 years ago. There must be a better way forward. Every survivor of sexual misconduct must be taken seriously. Every student accused of sexual misconduct must know that guilt is not predetermined. These are non-negotiable principles. Any failure to address sexual misconduct on campus fails all students. Any school that refuses to take seriously a student who reports sexual misconduct is one that discriminates. And any school that uses a system biased toward finding a student responsible for sexual misconduct also commits discrimination. A better way means that due process is not an abstract legal principle only discussed in lecture halls. Due process is the foundation of any system of justice that seeks a fair outcome. Due process either protects everyone or it protects no one. The notion that a school must diminish due process rights to better serve the victim only creates more victims.
Now, although DeVos did not explicitly state that they would revoke the prior Title IX guidance from the Obama administration, she did make that clear in an interview on CBS straight after her speech.
You said obviously there's going to be kind of a notice and rulemaking period. But I noticed you didn't say that you were revoking the previous guidelines. I mean, are you today rescinding the Obama administration guidelines?
Well, that's the intention, and we've begun the process to do so. But as I've said earlier in all of this discussion, it really is a process, not an event. But it is the intention to move beyond that and to move toward a better way. The process will be an extended one, but it is the intention to revoke or to rescind the previous guidance around this.
But of course there was the obligatory social justice slacktivists protesting with their mindless robotic chant.
Protesters chanting outside said the 2011 guidelines protected victims of college sexual assault.
How predictably boring and unoriginal. So as DeVos said, it's a process that will involve experts and advocates from all sides. DeVos is open to a range of proposals for reforming campus procedures from groups all across the political spectrum. But it's too early to declare victory just yet. As Christina Hoff Sommers notes, unfortunately the initial signs are not good. Hashtag Stop Betsy is trending on Twitter. Prominent Democrats are lining up to denounce the secretary. Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, tweeted, "Betsy DeVos's proposal is about to make campuses less safe. New York State stands with survivors." But shouldn't New York State also stand with due process and the Constitution? As Hoff Sommers said, DeVos's revamping of Title IX could turn out to be a rare occasion for bipartisan cooperation. However, given our poisonous political atmosphere, many will view even a sane and necessary reform as illegitimate in their zeal to oppose all things Trump. Liberal political leaders and college administrators may abandon a generation of students to what DeVos rightly called a failed system. And that's the real tragedy. It will be the students that suffer, and not just the falsely accused, but those who are genuine victims. Stuart Taylor and Casey Johnson, authors of The Campus Rape Frenzy, give accounts of where real victims of sexual assault were deprived of justice because the university administration bungled the process that would have been better handled by law enforcement. And once again, I cannot recommend this book enough. It's one of the most frustrating and anger-inducing books I've ever read, and I say that as an Australian that has no experience of US college campuses. This book should offend anyone that believes in justice and due process, and it should serve as a warning to young males about to embark on a college education.
One of the more interesting conversations I had in this was with a female civil libertarian talking about her son and her daughter. She said, "My daughter had a good head on her shoulders. She didn't get drunk. She didn't get naked in bed with people before she decided she didn't want to have sex with them. I didn't worry about her too much. I worried about her. I told her to be careful, and, you know, bad things can happen. You know, she might get run over by a bus stepping off a street corner, but I didn't worry about her too much, and I identify with that." She said, "I worry about my son a little more, because although the mathematical odds on him being falsely accused of rape or sexual assault may be fairly low still, I know, because this woman knows the system, that if he is accused, he's likely to be toast, no matter how strong the evidence of his innocence." So we say in the book at the end, you know, we advise your parent, be careful. We say, you know, you might check out the disciplinary systems at your college. But I also say in my own voice, if I had a son, I would tell him, you know, be a gentleman, treat women with consideration, never make advances that you don't think are wanted, But that alone is not going to guarantee you safety. You need to know that if you have sexual relations or foreplay with any woman who decides later that she wants to destroy you, she will have the power to do it. So choose very carefully. You know, I'm not going to say you need to be a monk.
Right.
And we also say, by the way, you know, if you stay away from women on your campus and date women from elsewhere, why, you're a little bit less likely to end up in the hands of the
Because those
disciplinary
proceedings
system.
aren't going to go the same way.
Yeah. Now, but it's not a very satisfactory thing to say. I don't say take a television camera with you everywhere. I don't say have her sign a waiver.
Right.
And I don't say join a monastery. But be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
And hire a lawyer. If you're accused, bang. Don't think this is going to go well. I'm going to get, you know, it'll be settled. I'm telling you the truth. They'll be fair. No, they won't be fair. Hire a lawyer. The lawyer won't be allowed to participate in the proceeding, but he will be able to
counsel you,
do some good things, counsel you, and in the end, sue them if necessary.
So, can this broken system be reformed, or will partisan politics prevent students from receiving the justice they deserve? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you next time.